So this is a background that I did in various layers with oil pastel and then some acrylic and gouache, probably aqua gouache because it's not shiny, and scraped through. So it's a very interesting background already, and now I thought I would see what I can do to, I don't know, bring it together or make it feel like a complete painting. And I don't have much of a plan. I just thought I'd try some leaves, some large leaves. I'm just kind of drawing with this woody, can't even see it, but I don't want to, let me try this crayon. I don't want to go in too much of a different color direction, but obviously it needs to be more different than that. And I want really big leaves. So I'll draw it out with the crayon and then paint. All right, we'll start with that. I am going to use, let's see, I think I want aqua gouache because I want it to stay dried. And I want kind of a bluish or darkish teal. So we'll start with this viridian and add some stuff. Let's see what color that is right now. I usually leave a piece of paper around so that I can test colors. Let's use this one. And a good sized brush. Let's see, I can use this one. Don't want to dip my brush in the coffee. I have done that many times. Yeah, actually, that's a pretty good color, but I don't like to use colors out of the tube, so I'm going to add something. I'm going to add some indigo. Well, let's try the cobalt, see what that does. So the difference between acrylic gouache and gouache is that the acrylic has some acrylic in it. Yeah, let's try that. And that means that once you paint it, it's not coming up. So unlike gouache, which you could adjust, you could reconstitute with water, this will dry and be permanent the way acrylic is, but it still has that lovely matte texture that gouache has that I love. And there's a lot on this paper already. Like I said, there's oil pastel, there's different types of paint. But acrylic gouache you can paint over anything, as far as I've experienced. And gouache is my favorite medium because of that matte, chalky texture that it has. It also, because of that, is great for scanning. So I think that's why my artwork, when it's scanned, and available in Giclée prints, has such a. People comment that the prints look just like the original. I think part of that is that the matte properties of the gouache scan much better than acrylic, which is shiny. I'm sure there are ways to get around that when you're scanning, but there's a richness that comes through. And when I have scanned some acrylic pieces and they just don't come through with that richness. And I wasn't sure why. but now I know that it's because shiny versus matte, and that's why the old fabric designers, in France, always used gouache to design wallpaper, and well, of course they weren't scanning, but they used it for wallpaper. And now it's used, well, people use all kinds of mediums now, but it just has a very great, wonderful texture, and I think you have to see it. I'm struggling to describe it, but when you see it, you can just tell the difference. If this were, of course it's not dry yet, so it is shiny, but if this were acrylic and I went like this, you would see the sheen that you see now because this is wet. But once it dries, you won't see that. And so the scanner must do better picking up the colors without that sheen in the paint. And I just don't like the way the sheen looks on paintings, period. Now, what I've seen artists do is, it's a good trick, kind of a good workaround if you like using acrylic, is you can finish your piece of art in spray it with a matte varnish. Either spray it or apply with a brush. But if you do that, then, and you get it on there really well, then you've turned your kind of shiny acrylic painting into a matte painting. And then it would probably scan better. How about that for a fix? Kind of just thought of that while I was talking to you. Okay. So like I said, I don't really know where I'm going with this. We're just going to see what happens. I do know that I need a stem of some kind, and I don't want it the same color. I've got a little bit of, no, that's just too much. I've already got too much of that teal. Let's go in a different direction with the stem and do maybe a orangey red or something. And then maybe, maybe this orangey red color will appear other places. Need some red. So I use Turner Acrylic Gouache a lot. I also use Holbein, that's what this one is. I would say that my, quality-wise, this is a middle quality one, the Turner. And then at the higher end would be the Holbein, and then this would be the Winsor Newton would be the top. But this is plain gouache, not acryl gouache. This one is acryl gouache. I'm not sure if Holbein makes they must make a regular gouache. I'm not sure. I just have the acryl gouache. Oh yeah, they do. That's true. Yeah, I have some. I have some small tubes. I like how that's blending with the crayon that I had underneath. That's one of the reasons I like using these new color crayons or the woodies, is that they blend and do interesting things. You can see that that's drying to a nice matte finish. Yes, I am obsessed with the matte finish. I know. I want some white. So for white, I use either white gouache or you can use gesso. But I've got a nice brush out, and gesso just, this is a watercolor brush, and gesso's gonna, it's not gonna ruin it. It's just, I'd rather not. It's not the best for it. When I've got my big old acrylic brushes out, then I don't mind using the gesso, and I do it a lot. All right, let's get some inspiration. Let's think about, let me look at a sketchbook and see. I use my sketchbooks to think about, what might be fun. These are kind of pretty, these flowers that then I outlined with the Pentel pen. So let's do some of that. Let's put those there. And for now I can make a stem that kind of goes like this, because I can always paint over it on another color. And then maybe these come up here like this. Let's leave that and try various shades of sort of pinky oranges. One of the other properties I love about either gouache or aqua gouache is you can paint over. Now, if you're using the regular gouache, you can't fuss a lot or you'll lift it up from the layer below. But I did aqua gouache and this is almost dry, not quite. But I'll come with a second coat. So I've got some, let's see, what is that color? It's a carmine mixing here with the orange. And then I need to get some more white. And that way I can go back and forth with going in the direction of orange versus pink and lighter versus darker with these colors. Ooh, look at that. That's yummy. Kind of a well, that's really in a different direction, but that's fine. We'll come back through here and come on over here. Should we go lighter? Well, it'll end up being a series of layers, which I can go in any, I can take them lighter, darker, doesn't really matter. But I do change how the flowers are oriented, and I vary the color, grabbing some lighter. I've gotten away from the oranges, haven't I? I feel like I want one here. And we'll do it more in the orange. I also like these lime green leaves in here. I think those will look good in here. Let's do one that's much smaller. Try to make the flowers irregular shaped. Different sizes. It's actually raining today here in Florida, which is not that common of an occurrence this time of year. So I'm grabbing some white to come back into this one because it's a bit lost with the darker background. And white, I didn't fully let that dark color underneath dry. So it's coming through a little bit, but that's okay. As it dries, I'll just add more coats. And especially with this white, might have to really let it dry instead of fussing with it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 flowers. Let's let those dry and come back to this lime green, which you can make with a yellow and a blue. I also happen to have some, I really like this color, Fresh Green by Turner. So I usually start with this and then modify it a little bit. Maybe warm it up with a little bit of warmer yellow. And oh yeah, that's pretty. And I might just put little stems of this and make the leaves sort of fat and round. What I like about this is I can come through, and if I like how they're kind of translucent like this, I can leave that, or if I want them to be more opaque, I'll just do another coat. And I'll probably end up going over the stem too, because I won't leave the stem the same color. I've been thinking about, you know, how my work is all very colorful and very color, and that I've been thinking about wanting to do some quiet, like a quieter series. And so I haven't really done anything about that. It's just kind of gurgling in the back of my mind. So to me, those are a little too bright. So I'll probably go through with a second coat and tone them down. And I want some over here, but I'm going to go ahead and, oh, that was too much toning down. And tone it down. You can tone down yellows and greens with, yellows with lots of different things, but you can tone down a green with a bit of red. It just takes it down a notch. So I'll do that over here. Do a little bit more. And I've had a lot of water, so that's why it's so translucent. But I'm definitely going to come back through and a second coat. Unless I like how it looks. This kitty is rubbing on my leg. She wants to be fed, even though she's already been fed. And I saw her walk right past a lizard outside. So she can't be too hungry. Yeah, I'll be toning those down a lot because I feel like they're just competing too much. Let's see. Kind of liking this indigo going on, and these will be perfect to go over with, some gold to get some texture. In fact, we can do some of that now and see how we like it. This is just a Craftsmart paint pen. It's actually one of my favorite paint pens. I bought fancier ones and they just don't go on. Literally, like, look at that. Depends on the effect you want, but if I want gold that really looks like gold and is very opaque, then I use this pen. I do all kinds of techniques. Like I might end up deciding that that's all just too intense between the background color and the gold and going over it with a soft white wash. We'll just have to see where this one evolves. I am trying to do more on YouTube, as you can tell. It's a fun way for me to share my process and chat with you. And I do have classes on Skillshare. I think 6 now, floral and abstract classes. And if you don't know what Skillshare is, it's a great website where I do a lot of learning. I would say most of my online learning is there. All kinds of classes, and it's a membership model, so once you're a member, you can take as many classes as much as you want. It's really an amazing resource. I'm learning Procreate now, so I've been taking some classes on Procreate. Wow, that pops, doesn't it? Dang. I want to do some more on these red, orangey, pink flowers, but they're not dry. And I also want to tone down some parts of the background. That's going to be hard though, because I happen to really like this background, so I don't know that I'll be able to get rid of. A lot of times there's just big sections I don't like, but I have to tone down or do something to unify this at some point. Let's see what other inspiration we can find. Kind of like that burgundy color, which that kind of appears burgundy there. But I don't know where I want to put it. I like these little guys. Maybe I could put burgundy little things up here. Let's try that. So to make burgundy, I'm going to take a red, kind of a magenta-y red, and then a indigo. Where's my indigo hiding? I could use black. No, here it is. This is called black blue. Turner has a few colors. They call them Japanese. They have a different texture. Kind of interesting. That's going to be too much probably. And a brush that can make small little dabby things. Ooh, too dark. It's too purpley, so I'm going to add a bit of yellow. I want like a deep plum. It's one of those colors I'm obsessed with, especially in combination with like a mustard yellow. I mean, just look at on the palette, the plum with that mustard there. Does it make you happy like it makes me happy? And then these will be, I'll put something in them, like probably a mustardy yellow little dot in them. So by adding water, I can change, the opacity, and it changes the color. You get variation here. This brush has got a stray hair that is making little things I don't like. So he might have to go back in the jar. Or I could say those little stray hairs are interesting. I'm just going to kind of make them meander up here. And I think that would be better for this stem too. Would work for flower centers. Maybe a little more water. And the paper towel is always your friend when you want to lift something or create a little texture. I'm wanting a darker green on these stems. So I've already got some yellow and blue, so I will just make a green. And if I want to tone it down, I can add a little orange. That's a good green, kind of a warm green. And a little bit darker. We are going to visit our daughter in Austin this week, and I'm already thinking about what supplies I want to take. Now that I have this green, I'm going to add some white and yellow and do some leaves. I think I'm going to take just a few, like a sketchbook, of course, and then my sort of mini brush kit. I mean, just a few of my favorite brushes. And when I travel, it's a great time to challenge myself to just taking a few colors and using what I can, and remembering how much you can mix. See, now that's nice and opaque because I made it really thick. How much you can mix, how many colors you can mix. You don't need all these two colors that I have. You really only need yellow, maybe a cyan and a magenta, and then white and a dark. My favorite dark is indigo, but you can use black, Payne's gray. And then I'm going to take the new iPad and practice Procreate. My mission on Procreate is to create textured paintings that do not look digital. So that's what I'm learning. It's so great that we can keep learning. I want more color variation in these leaves, so I'm going to go backwards. I just added a little bit of plum to the green, and I can paint over, or I can just put a stripe in some of them and paint over half the leaf. I usually do that several times with my leaves. Just keep adding different colors to make them more interesting. Now that I have that green made, I think I'm going to create the suggestion here, maybe make it a little darker, of some leaves, stems to these. Just a suggestion so that they aren't floating. There's nothing wrong with floating. These are floating in the sketchbook, but it just depends on what the piece feels like. I'm thinking about what I want to do with those yellows. They're bothering me being so bright, so I'm going to, I think I'm going to take some oil pastel, try something. I can always paint over it. Just lighten them up a little bit. And oil pastel you can leave that way, or you can rub it in, depending on the effect you want. Standing back, thinking about what I want to do. I think I want, instead of the green, well, no, on that plum, I think I want to go into the plum things there and do this warm yellow bit on them, and then I'll probably be at the point where I'm going to stop and bring it out another day. Although you never know, sometimes I get an idea and keep going. I'm just gonna, no, I didn't want to do that. I want to tone it down a bit. I'll grab a tiny bit of this. I'm going for that mustard, which is yellow with a little bit of pink or purple, tones it down to a mustard. I'm just putting these in different spots. Doesn't need to be on all of them, because they're the suggestion of, either a center or a highlight, and depending on how the little things are turned, they wouldn't all have them, and that'll need another coat. I could stick some centers in here and might come through and change those, but kind of like the teal showing through on some of these, so I'll leave some of that. Speaking of teal, turquoise. It's the official color, turquoise. I don't really do much that doesn't have some turquoise in it. Let's see if this is dry enough to take I use this ivory Posca a lot, and it's really good at toning down anything. So, you know, I've got paint on here, oil pastel, but this is going on fine. See how that help goes. I want some finer lines in that same color, so I've got to find my smaller ivory. This one's not been behaving real well. It's been, yeah, see, it's just kind of, I think it's clogged partly, that happens. Paint pens are just notorious for misbehaving, but they're such a part of my, come on. Okay, it's coming along. You just need coaxing sometimes, lots of pumping, writing on a piece of paper. I'm just going to outline some of these. I might come back with a second coat. And I think before I let it dry, since the flowers have dried, I'm going to come through with a second coat on those flowers. Especially this one, which needs some light colors to dry, and then I can go back over it to get more of the color I want. This carmine is really pretty. Same with this one. It needs some, you have to go lighter to cover up that dark leaf below, and then we can come back and bring it back down if I want. It just needs more opacity, and the opacity really comes from light, so we'll take it lighter and change it later if we want. So when I'm, you know, who knows if this design will end up, since I don't really know how it's going to end up yet, if it'll end up being one of the ones that I put on products in my Redbubble shop, because that's how most of those have been created. And it's kind of funny to think about this being a shower curtain or a dress or a bath mat, a mouse pad. Oh, I just ordered my mouse pad. I have to show you. It just got here. The old one I had was peeling, so this just arrived. So cool to see my art on the mouse pad, but it's nice quality. Oh, in fact, you can see like the gold outline there? That was this same Pentel pen that I'm going to be using later on this. And this is oil pastel, Arco gouache, Posca pen. Oh, and this is gold foil. That's how the gold foil came through, with a lot of interesting texture. So that's fun and exciting. So I'm still not getting the quality I want on these flowers, so I'm going to go lighter. They're just looking too muted. So I'm going to go lighter and then we'll come back through once that dries. So there's going to be an ugly stage here. Sometimes you have to go through the ugly. I don't think I've ever created anything that didn't go through an ugly phase. And I think I really started to grow as an artist when I realized when I, when I kept pushing through that ugly phase. You can also do, kind of a dry brush technique if you just don't wet your brush as much. Get some interesting textures. The great thing about gouache is that it dries really fast. But that's also sometimes a challenge. I'm definitely going to have to tone down these dark leaves with the gray. It's just a little too, and it's dominating everything else. So I think I'm going to do that next while these flowers dry. Now I have to think about how do I want to tone it down. I might just add a really, let's see, I use this color a lot, ivory white. You can make an ivory white, but my palette's getting full, and if I put white on it, it's definitely going to run into other things. So let's move this over here and do like a ivory wash and see how that looks. Get a big brush, water it down a lot, and see. This is something that is much easier to do because I did use the acrylic wash. So it's not going to pull up this dark blue green. And I can always do another layer, so I'm going light. And maybe I'll dab it with a paper towel so some of it is still on the brighter side. That was too much white. I don't remember who it was, but it might have been that I heard it on Laura Horn's podcast. I don't know, but I heard an artist say, making art is just creating problems and then solving them. And I really related to that because anytime you start a piece, you're going to have all kinds of, quote, problems in it, like too much bright or needs to go back further, needs to come up further, composition issues, how things go over other things, layers, what you want to show, what you don't want to show, and all of it. And then you gotta solve those. But I like the process because they emerge and you solve one and then you see another one it allows you to see the other one, and you just keep doing that until everything looks right to you. But that takes time. That's not something I knew how to do in the beginning. For sure. I've been doing this, I guess. I've been creating all my life, but just painting probably 3 or 4 years. And I started with just really simple drawings, really. I mean, not even drawings, because I don't draw well. I don't think of myself as a person who draws. Yeah, that's definitely brought it down a level. So I think at this point I'm going to stop and let it dry and come back to it and see what I can do in the background that makes it not compete. Right now the background competes with the foreground, but I want to preserve elements of the background. So what I'll probably end up doing, I can test it out now, is what I usually do in this situation is just paint over certain areas. And like I said, I like the ivory. And it usually takes several coats to get it to not compete as much. See, I thought I was going to stop, but now I'm kind of wanting to try some more of this. This is not the right brush for it, though. I need something a little smaller and a little stiffer. Just a little bit, and then we'll let it dry and tone down just certain parts of the background. Sometimes I cover up quite a lot and do a negative painting kind of situation. You can see that that barely covered it, so we'll see when it dries, but I'll definitely need to do more, but at least this is giving me a sense of how that looks. And I kind of like it. Where did you go, Ivory? So anyway, I do want to do some quieter paintings. But I'm just kind of holding that and seeing what comes of it. That was really bright, but that's okay, we can water it down. It's helping those leaves show up more though, which I like. And nothing about the background needs to be consistent. The composition has to hang together at some point, but you can have lighter and darker parts of the background. So like this background here that I have, I mean, I created this months ago, so I'll do that, you know, just some backgrounds which are just super fun, and then, well, it's all fun, but I'll let them sit, and I'll have no idea what I'm going to do with them later. And you can leave like an edge of this underpainting decide how much of it you want to cover. It's barely noticeable, so it's going to take a lot more painting. As I'm going conservatively, I'm not covering, I'm adding quite a bit of water, so it's pretty translucent. Just in case I decided I didn't want to cover as much as I did. Brushes. Too slow. And the texture's still showing through because it's oil pastel. It's pretty hard to cover up. We could have also darkened the background. Get this out of the way. But I like the direction this is going. I will just keep at it, and I'll be adding details, and who knows. I like that spot there, so I'm gonna dab that out, and that one is really pretty too. Because there's so much going on in the background, this layer of gouache is just adding to the texture in a really cool way, almost like an old wall you see, you know, like in historical areas, a kind of a crumbly wall. I love that look. I'm already on a second coat here of the ivory. I'm just using a paper towel where there are areas that I want to pop through. But it is looking better. It is competing less. I could have been a whole lot easier before I started this the painting with you today. I could have gone over the whole background with an ivory wash, but I wasn't sure that's what I wanted to do. Seems like I do it more often than not though, so maybe next time I'll do a background and then do the ivory wash and then the painting over it. But I find this really relaxing. It's time consuming. Probably pretty boring for you to watch too. But I like to listen to artists when I'm painting, just kind of have it on, so maybe you like to do that too. Okay, I think we're gonna let that dry and see where we are. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Hope you get some creative time.